And now to that new video purportedly from the Islamic State terror army showing the brutal executions of kidnapped Christians in Libya. Not too long ago, a similar video was released where ISIS members brutally beheaded 21 Egyptian Coptic Christians. Remember that. It sparked a harsh retaliation from the air through its Air Force from Egypt. Joining me now is John Bolton, former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and a Fox News contributor. Always good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Glad to be with you.
You know, I'm just going to jump right in. Is it fair at this point to question why the president and the White House have not spoken of specifically defending Christians hunted by the Islamic State savages, not in just this one instance, but in a broad sense?
Yes, I think it's quite important to show that we understand the brutality of the ideology that ISIS and its adherents demonstrate here. You know, the president's, I think, been excessively reluctant to talk about radical Islamicism because he thinks that it would result in discrimination against Muslims. I think that's badly misguided. I think Muslims have been among the principal victims of ISIS, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda, and other terrorist groups. But look, these people are pursuing what they think is a vision of Islam. They don't think they're Hindus or Buddhists. And our inability to articulate what they say they're up to makes it very difficult to defend against.
You know, today's reports, and you just mentioned Boko Haram, who is active now in Nigeria. They've moved on to Chad, Cameroon, taking women and children hostage, killing many of them, separating the Muslims out from the non-Muslims, sort of a religious cleansing that they see by ISIS, and now reports that they are adopting that same vision. If this is not a holy war, as the president and some of his fellow party members have argued, then what is it?
Well, you know, they explain it as random acts of terrorism, that it doesn't constitute a war against the West, against Christians, against Israel, but it simply doesn't comport with reality. And I don't think that we can effectively deal with the problem across the board unless we recognize it's an ideology. It's not an ideology based on poverty. It's an ideology based on religion. It's not to say that all Muslims agree with it, quite the contrary. Indeed, as I say, if you look at some Muslim political leaders like General al-Sisi in Egypt, he's called for a revolution inside Islam. He's defended the Coptic Christians. He attacked what he thought were ISIS bases in Libya after those Coptic Christians were beheaded. We have allies in the Muslim world if we'll stand up and declare what we're opposed to. I think the president's gravely wrong not to do it.
You know, Ambassador, is that really the point, though? Does the president, does the White House, do lawmakers not have faith in us enough to know that we do know the difference that it isn't all Muslims? I mean, is that why they won't call this what it is, radical Islam?
Well, I think it's a reflection of the president's own view that this is it's consistent with his policy that there is no war on terror. The war on terror is over. It's long since reverted simply to a law enforcement problem. I think that blindness led us to the tragedy in Benghazi in September of 2012. And I think it's been one of the underlying reasons why the United States has not been effective in stopping ISIS in Syria and Iraq, where despite one victory in Tikrit recently, ISIS in that part of the world is still expanding. ISIS is obviously growing in the chaos of Libya. Boko Haram has declared their affiliation with the ISIS caliphate. Now, there's no guarantee all of this is going to hold together, but any objective observer would have to say that ISIS and the ideology it reflects is growing and expanding, and we are not effectively dealing with it.
Real quickly before I let you go, my question is not to indicate in any or suggest in any way that we live under some sort of singular Christian faith in America. But we do have some signs here, like, you know, in God we trust on our money, and the Pledge of Allegiance, which at last check in most cities across America still have words about God in it. Is there a different onus on us? Is there a different level of responsibility as America when we watch Christians being slaughtered that would fall on us to react?
Well, I think so, and I think it's because the threat that ISIS represents, although we may see it carrying out its brutal acts against Christians in the Middle East today, if they're able to consolidate their control in Syria and Iraq or Libya, we're going to see it in the United States soon enough. We either defend ourselves at a distance or we defend ourselves in our cities. I'm in Boston today. You brought up the Boston Marathon bombing. Is that where we want to defend ourselves? I don't think so. I don't think that's where the American people are, wherever the president may be.
Wow. All right, Ambassador Bolton, thank you very much for being with us tonight. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Harris.